Welcome everyone. This is Linda at Icky Chic Designs, and I'm happy to have you with me today as I explore a little bit the power behind fabric scraps. It just kills my soul when I see someone sewing and their offcuts and their scraps, they just chunk them in the trash, and I'm thinking, oh my, oh my. The power of scraps to transform into something beautiful is only limited by our own imagination and willingness to try to dream up things to do with them. So I want to do a series over the next few months of ways that I use scraps, and maybe they will inspire you to keep a bag of those around and work on some of the original designs that you can dream up with these scraps. People look at a pile like this and they wonder, oh, what in the world can I do with that? And there's nothing in there big enough to work with. Well, actually, a lot of times in scraps, there are just little tiny thread-like pieces, or there's something with a little bit of width to it. And so with a combination of both of those, we can find something to do with them. Today, I'm going to show you how I make scrappy flowers out of these for my junk journals and my slow stitch projects. Here is a sample of 3 little scrappy flowers that are done with just fabric scraps, just snippets as you can tell, and some little decorative pieces of thread or yarn or something I might have to tack on the top. These are just hand sewn and very easy to make, and as you can see, they're small, so they go on a lot of different things. For instance, I could take one of these and let's see, put it on this little pouch that I just recently made. I could decorate with something like that, would be really cute. And or I could take one and this little booklet that I've made, could have put one right on the top of that. Isn't that cute? They are so versatile. They will go on just about anything that you want to make handmade or sewn for that matter. But let's get into how I do them. First of all, I take the scraps that are wide enough to give me a little bit of snippets here. You can see the size of these in my hand. Okay, and just get me a pile of them, different colors. I will thread up a needle, get it ready. Then I just choose something and let me tell you from the very beginning, you don't want to overthink this, okay? This is not rocket science. This is just putting stuff together. Take your little pieces and start placing them around. You can see that most of my little pieces I cut in somewhat of a triangle shape. That way it gives me some kind of a little point to start with. I mean the point of the flower that looks kind of like a petals. And so I just keep placing those around until I get a good little mixture going here. Now, however many you want to put on there is strictly up to you. That there is no right or wrong in this, or how many you can do or can't do. It's how many ever you want to work with on yours. So I think that's, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 little pieces right there. And I think I'm going to try that. So I get those together, and then I get my needle, and we're just gonna sew these in the center, get them tacked good and strong. And as you place them, you want to try to make sure that as you're laying them down, that each one is coming to the center area, so that when you do this step of tacking it, you'll catch all of them at the same time. You can see that. I'm just going to make 4 or 5 little stitches around this center to make sure that I've got them all done. Now I'm using single thread. A lot of times I'll double my thread, and other times I will use quilting thread, single stranded, because it's pretty thick and strong. Okay, now once I get them to this point, then I want to determine what I want to put in the center. And to do that, I go to my catch-all little tub here. If you can see, I've got a little bit of everything in here. But these are bits and pieces of threads and yarns and whatever. I like this little piece here. That'll make a nice center. Need to put it with something. About a piece of this. Again, this is just what we're using here is tiny stuff. So throw your tiny bits and pieces in a tub and go for it. Okay. So if I squinch that up, I can put that in the center of my flower, and I can tack and sew that in as I go. Now on this, there's no particular way to sew it. You just want to make sure that you get it tacked down really good, because we're going to do some rough stuff with this little flower later, and we don't want all of that pretty little stuff coming off of the center. So I caught one of my little green ones in the back, as you can see. I don't want to cut it. I think I'll just add another one in its place and make sure that I get it tacked in. Oh, do you have as much trouble with thread as I do? I think as I get older, it's harder to manipulate this stuff now. Well, my thread just came undone. Let me thread my needle again. No matter how long you've been sewing, you make the same mistakes all through the years, and I don't think it ever stops. So just sewing is a good way to build patience. You have to exercise a lot of it sometimes. Okay, here we go again. Let's continue to baste in this center. Tucking in those little pieces as you go around. Now it's okay to have a little loose ends sticking out, but you just want to make sure that you have the other end tacked securely, so that you're not going to lose that little piece there. Just take your time and get it secured in there as best you can. This one. Oops. That one straight up my needle. Almost done with the center. Oh, I hate it when I do that. There we go. Today is going to be an exercise in bloopers, I think, with the thread. Okay, here we go. Just about around it. Okay, so you can see that the flower, it now has a little center of interest, and I'm just going to come on the back side now and secure this thread. Now, if you're a junk journaler and you're making this for your junk journals, this is the time that I would put a little piece of paper on the back, and then I would tack that paper through that paper as I'm tacking the back side. That way I have a really good glue surface on the back to glue it into my book onto paper. Some people like to glue, just the straight fabric, but I like to put a paper backing on things that are going into my book. I think it secures better, stays longer. Okay, we'll make a little knot here through the loop, and that is secured. So let's tack that. Okay, earlier I said that we were going to rough up this little flower a little bit, and so that's one reason why we want to tack it strong. And we are going to do exactly that. So first of all, look at your flower, and whoops, that one I didn't get in there, and make sure that everything is like you want it. You can come in if you've got some cuts that are thicker, and you can always come in and just slice that petal, because that's not going to make any difference at all. In fact, you might do that to 2 or 3 regardless of their sizes, because it helps them to fray. And to fray is what we want. You notice what makes this so cute is that it's all frayed and scrappy looking and look like it's been around the block a few times, and that's its charm, and that's what we're trying to get out of this. So once I get it all secured and everything, then I hold down the center and I just rough up those edges. Just really be really mean to them, because you want that fabric to fray. And so again, when you start this, you want to pick cotton fabrics that will fray on the edges. Don't pick fabrics that don't fray well, because the frayed look is what you're going for. So we want it to ravel and fray. Okay, now this is what I do first, but I'm not through yet. When I get a batch of these done, I take them and I put them in water and get them all wet. And when they're really wet, then I take a towel and I just, again, scrub those little edges around with a towel like that. And then when I'm done, I lay them down, let them dry. When they're dry, I will take them again and again, fray those little edges just as much as you want to, okay, until you get the look out of the flower that you want, okay. Now that's all there is to it, and you can see that the power of scraps to transform is amazing. This pile can transform into a beautiful flower garden. Just look at that again. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay. Now some people will leave their flowers at this step. I like to do the water thing because it breaks down those edges a little bit more and allows them to fray a little bit more and blend those petals together. Okay, so but you can do either one that you want. Even if I've had a really big batch, I've thrown them in the dryer with my towels and just let them fluff and dry with the towels, and that's really amazing too. You can make them bigger. There's no problem with that. You can make, really big raggy ones. That works too. Okay, so that's what you can do with stuff like this. Let these scraps transform into something beautiful. In this case, a flower. Now, if you noticed also in this pile, there were some tiny little thready little pieces here. And that, of course, is not big enough for a petal. So why in the world would I save that? Okay. What I do with those is even more amazing, because if you think about it, this is what you can end up with. When I pull all those really thin ones out, what does that remind you of? Right, a tassel. And there's your tassel already made. Okay, now these are really cute. I like to just fold them over, tack them, and add them to a flower. Makes a beautiful tassel for the flower. Okay, so you can make just regular tassels and put your beads and charms on it. Sew them to the back of the flowers, whatever you want to do. You can add a lot of charm. You can also just, if you're doing raggy looks on your books, adding just a whole column of these down a book or down a slow stitch project, and just make your stitches across, and without organize them or anything, just lay them down and let them fall where they want to, and then just sew them down. And that's really pretty too. Now again, you could do that, and then you could add your flowers to that column if you wanted to, or have whatever else you wanted to do. But there's a million things to do with scraps. So don't let anything get away from you, no matter how tiny it is. Some of you know that I even have what I call confetti. If I have an overabundance of strips like this, I'll take it and cut it into the tiniest little squares. And then those little squares a lot of times will become centers of flowers. They'll be sprinkled over something and sewn in, and very useful for that too. So there's absolutely nothing that goes to waste. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this, and you'll make some of these fun little items for yourself, and see what you can do and how you can make the power of scraps to transform into beautiful things in your sewing room. Thank you so much for being with me, and this is Linda at Icky Chic Designs.